Good morning, it is Monday, it's the start of a new week. You join me under the stairs, Harry Potter vibes, with hungry hippos and trying to build a business. Week is a hectic one, exciting one. I'm going to try and separate it out a bit for you, maybe across a few vlogs because there's a lot going on. What I really want to focus on this week is representation, and it's all because I had the most beautiful moment with my son yesterday, and it just made me realise that representation of any kind doesn't work in isolation. Like, it doesn't work. A lot of people, I know we can't move every needle at the same time, so we've all got to focus on one needle to move. So someone might focus on representation in fashion, in media, writing, and it all needs to come together. Like, it all needs to kind of create this ecosystem of inclusion or representation that shows every facet of a disabled person's life. Because for me, just because I'm disabled, just because I've got one arm, doesn't mean I don't like sport, doesn't mean I don't like fashion, doesn't mean I don't want a family or a marriage or children. Like, or humans with all of those different needs and wants, and we also have the experience of disability within that. And this situation with my son just made me realise that when representation is lived and it's normalised and repeated, it becomes this non-topic, and it's just so friggin' beautiful. And if you can do that before children even almost have the words to ask about it, then it's just such a non-conversation, and I love it. And like, at the moment, representation of disability is on the rise, and I love that so much. But what does it look like in real life? Like, what does it mean? So I need to go find the book. But my son is of reading age, and yesterday he came home with a new reading book. I don't know where it is, but it was just so sweet. So we started reading, and I was really focused on the fact that he had new words in the book, and just wasn't really looking at the pictures. Where's the page that I saw it on? So I got through the first 3 pages and didn't realise, because I was so focused on him getting the words right. And then I looked down and I see this dude, and I was so excited. It might sound really silly, but there were so many reasons that this made me emotional. And I'm gonna sit down again because there was loads of layers to why it gave me all the feels. One of them was the fact that my son hadn't gone, "Oh mummy, there's a boy like you in my book." Like, that wasn't a topic. And I love that so much because he doesn't see it as a difference. And I know that obviously he's known me his entire life, so it's just my body to him. Like, it isn't different, it's all he's known. But when he sees it in other people and in books and things, it's not a topic to him. So that was the first thing that I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I've never seen myself in a school book. I've never seen myself represented in a school book. Would never have imagined that happening when I was at school. And to him, it's just the norm, which is just so freaking beautiful. So my first choice in that moment was not to point it out. I just went, oh look, and he was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. But Theo was just focused on the reading. So he's reading, I'm excited that there's a limb different character in the book, and we're going through different bits. And as I'm going through the book, you can see the child is using their limb to, here he's using it to lift the tap, here he's using it to hold some soap whilst he's giving his dragon a bath, as you do. And then even just the little things, here he's just using, he's got his arm bent and he's resting on it. And I was like, obviously I just love how they're representing him. And then they show him here as well, lying down colouring, and he's using his arm to rest. And it might sound like, again, nothing, but that was a very accurate representation of how I would use my arm in those situations. And I feel like someone without experience within kind of the limb different world, I feel like they wouldn't necessarily know or understand what that would look like. Therefore, usually what I would be used to seeing if I saw a depiction of someone with a limb difference in a storybook is it would always be very passive. The arm would just be there. It wouldn't be doing anything. It wouldn't be used like someone with a limb difference would use it. because obviously we're adapting stuff, we're adapting two-handed tasks all the time, and the way things are depicted was so good. And I was like, oh, I just like everything about it, I was like, I love it. And then at the back I was like, oh, I wonder if they'll have anything about it, about disability or anything. Nothing in there about that, which I loved as well, in a way that there wasn't any big spiel at the end about disability or limb difference. This is a character, he has a limb difference, this is how he would navigate those tasks. End of the conversation. And then I spotted at the bottom this beauty. So turns out that our friend Jane from LimbBo Foundation had actually advised on this book. She's an ex-teacher. She does so much work in the background advising on books like this so that children can see themselves represented in stories. This is from the syllabus. It's huge. This is how my child is learning to read. This is how there'll be groups of children in his class with this book in their book bag, reading it with their parents. They have all seen me. They've all seen my arm. They know I have a limb difference. And then they're seeing that representation in this book as well. And that's huge, because in my head, it saves my son from having to potentially have a conversation, because hopefully there'll be a conversation had around the book. And it also just normalises it. And I just love that Jane is doing this. She does this, I can't remember how many books she's done this to, but it's in the 10s. And it's in, if the books aren't in the schools around her, then she takes them to the schools. So she provides them as well to make sure they're in the classrooms. And it's just incredible. And it's such a tiny thing, but also such a big thing. And yeah, so going back to when I read it with him, so we went through it, really good, crushed the reading, got to the end, and I was like, Nicole, don't mention it. Just let it be. Like, he doesn't want to mention it, he doesn't see a reason to mention it. Don't make a thing of it, because it just shows how normalised it is. So I was good. I left it, even though I was excited, so I was like, can't we look at this now? And then a bit later I gave in, because I was thinking about it and I was like, I wonder why he's not mentioned it. Has he not mentioned it because he's not noticed it? Or has he not mentioned it because it's not a thing to him? So later on I was like, oh, I was like, it's called Dan. But I was like, do you recognise it? Like, do you notice anything different about Dan? He was like, no. And I was like, okay. So do you realise that I thought I'm just gonna say it. I was like, do you realise that he's got an arm like mummy? And he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. So I think sometimes as an adult you can project a lot of things onto a situation that aren't being felt by the child. He's just like, whatever, cool, not bothered at all. But actually for me that means I've done my job. And that's why, so at the beginning, I just feel like there's a weight off my shoulders a little bit with the whole thing. Yeah, because like the lack of those questions I might have expected wasn't because that moment didn't matter. It was actually because the conversation had already been had, both verbally and just in lived proof. So obviously I'm his mum, he's seen me do everything. It made me realise that yes, this book is new, but his exposure to disability isn't new. And it was just a wonderful little moment that proved that to me. Like, my boys have spent quite a lot of time now in spaces where disability is present and normalised, and where there is such great examples of inclusion. So I just love it, because I can see that disability is framed in such a different way for the boys, because they've had that ecosystem of showing like my lived experience in real time, but then also in the media that they've consumed, in the events they've attended with me, like they've seen it all, and it's just how it should be. That's what I'm working on anyway, like, but it's just how it should be for everybody. And then it just stops those situations that you hear about where you've got like the kid shouting across a supermarket, mummy, why has da da da, and then the mum being so stressed and being like, oh my goodness, or the parent being like, oh, like shush, don't stare, don't shout that, like almost like turning on the child, and like it's not shame, but it is a shame thing, I guess. It's like, don't shout that, like don't look at them. It makes people feel like, but the dynamics underneath it are just so complex, because you don't know how to have that conversation. But actually if you get representation right, if you get inclusion right, it's fine. And that all came from a little reading book. It just made me happy. The little me inside did a little smile. While I'm in this thought process, I better go and put his book back. Don't like it. It makes me think about the fact that at one point I didn't know how to have these conversations, and it slowly started coming up. Obviously my boys they're 4 and 7 now, and I've had so many little situations where the boys have been like, oh look mummy, that man has no leg, and you've got this split second where you're like, oh my goodness, what do I say? How do I navigate this without shaming, without saying something wrong, without not acknowledging their knowledge gap because they're used to my upper limb difference, not a lower limb difference, or acknowledging the fact that they might just be excited because they know the work I do and they know what it means to me. This is so much in that split second, you're like, what do I do? And I think the most beautiful moment with it all, with the boys, was last year. We decided to take the boys to an EAFA camp, which is the England Amateur Football Association. So we took them to a junior camp for an event, which was so lovely. And in that, we got to get the boys involved with some sessions, and it was just so beautiful. The boys played as much as they could with some of the kids in between the training sessions. Actually ignited love for football in both of them actually. Noah now wants to be a goalie, loves it. And the boys spent hours just playing with the kids, playing with some of the lads from the men's team. And yeah, I get a lot of questions from parents about how you navigate a situation where maybe a child's seeing a different disability for the first time, a child has questions. And for a while, I was given advice that felt like it was from quite a removed place, from a place that was more on the recipient side, the person with a disability being spotted for the first time. So the advice I used to give was very much, don't tell them not to not stare, don't tell them not to not ask. I'm happy for you to talk to me, come over, say hi if you need to. Don't be scared. Basically, don't be scared, and they can come and ask me a question if they need to. As a child, obviously adults are very different. Please don't come and ask me where my arm's gone when you're in your 50s. If you're curious, go home and have a Google. Don't need to do that. But yeah, that was the advice I used to give, which I don't know, didn't really feel like, now feels a bit removed, because the first EAFA match that the boys saw, the men's team played down near us, and so we thought it was a good opportunity to go. We had the boys that weekend, so we thought, well, we'll bring them with us and see what they think. And because I know my children, they're curious and they have zero volume control, I thought, well, what I'll do, they're about to see a lot of people with a lot of different limb differences from mine. They're bound to have some questions. So we stayed back a bit from the pitch. I explained the game. I was like, these people have, like, if you're on the field, then you have to have crutches. So you have to have this type of limb difference. But I kept it very child friendly. Then if you're in goal, then you have an arm like mummy or something. So I just tried to explain it that way. I was like, look how speedy they are on their crutches, and I tried to answer things by explaining the game in a child friendly way. And I was like, right, fine, let's go say hi to Harvey, because Harvey was coaching, and let's just go into the situation, walk in. And one of the players walked past and he had shorts on, and then you saw he had a prosthetic leg on. Not sure which type. It's like above knee, so he had like the C-drive knee and everything in there. Looks super cool. And all I hear from my youngest is just, "Mummy," really loud, "why has that man got a metal leg?" And I was just like, okay. So I was like, this is my moment. This is the moment where you kind of stress out that you have to answer as a parent without upsetting anyone around you, without upsetting the child, without shaming the child. So many dynamics to manage in a split second. I turned around and I was like, oh. So I was like, well, that man is on the field, so he has a leg like this and he'll run on crutches. But sometimes he uses his metal leg because it's easier to move around. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he shouts another question really loud, another question. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, okay, like, this is fine in an adult situation, right? Like, I'm used to children asking questions really loudly. I'm sure they're fine with it, but I need the boys to understand the dynamics. So We went and got a snack and I was like, look, totally get all your questions, they're all very valid, but I was like, can we say them a little quieter to mummy, and mummy can answer anything you need me to answer. But we just need to remember that some people might not be comfortable with people asking questions about their body. We don't know how they feel about those questions. So maybe if we just say it quietly, mummy can answer, then you know the answers, like it's fine. And he was like, okay mummy, that was it. A bit later, he saw a different type of prosthetic, went to shout, and then he was like, oh mummy, and asked me in a normal decibel. And I answered it, and I was like, it's fine, we can answer, we can ask, we can all the things, but let's just not always involve the other individual. And I think that's huge, because as a disabled person, you feel like it's your responsibility all the time to answer the questions, to give your diagnosis, to overshare, all these things. Whereas teaching kids that actually it's not their responsibility to answer every curiosity, but I'm here to do that, is good. And I think it was then wonderful because we went to the camp, and again they remembered that rule that we can ask questions quietly, which was great because they then had some questions around the children with limb difference, which could obviously, I think, could hit a bit different, and definitely used to for me. If a child was asking about my arm, just feels a bit different because they're your peers, right? So it feels a bit harder. But yeah, so they remembered that, they had a few questions for me, and then they just cracked on, they played football. And it just reminds you that kids are just curious. Once they have the answers, once they've seen the representation, that's it. And going back to the book, it becomes a non-topic, and it's just beautiful. So yeah, there's my inclusion ramble. It was just such a nice little moment, and I'm so grateful to Jane for giving not only me, but lots of other families those moments, and just knocking down a few barriers. Doesn't take much, and she's a bit of an unsung hero with it all. I really believe that it's not children that are born uncomfortable with disability. I think society teaches them, and therefore it really does start with adults. It starts with those conversations, how you have them, where you pull representation from. It's just so important. And my boys they're proof of it. They don't see disability as something that's unusual, because it's part of their everyday life, and they know they have a safe space in me to share those thoughts and questions that they might have, to have a real understanding, and then move on with their day. And as a mum with a limb difference, and someone who's obviously running these different businesses to try and support representation and give a platform for disabled voices, when certain situations come up with your children, there's just this additional pressure. I can't imagine when somebody without experience with disability has their child kind of turn around and go, well, Mummy, why has that person got XYZ? Or why does this look different? I can't imagine the visceral feeling that they get naturally, because how do you navigate it if you don't know? Children don't have volume control, mine don't. So how do you navigate that? And then put on top of that a level of, you should know how to navigate that, but you haven't done it yet, which is what I feel sometimes with situations with my boys. It just feels like a lot. But something kicks in and you're like, right, okay, let's see if this works. Let's see what the outcome is. And this situation yesterday, it just showed me that everything is working well. And yeah, just a weight off my shoulders a little bit. So hello. I just got back from my mum's. It is 9:15, and this is a bit of a fast forward, so we should have posted the vlog by now, but we edited it a little bit late. And looking through my little ramble about inclusion, today I got to look back over kind of my whole thought process with Theo bringing back that storybook, and just talking about inclusion and representation for children and what that means for society. And the thing that just keeps ringing in my ears is that children aren't born uncomfortable with disability, they learn it. Or they can learn ease, like my sons have. And that doesn't happen in one moment or 2 moments, it happens in multiple moments. Whether it's a conversation or something being seen, whether it's the way that someone interacts with another person with a disability, or just representation of a person with a disability living their life. it all adds up. And those conversations, they might feel hard at first, but that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means that you're at the beginning of the process. But that's how it starts being a non-topic, and that's where inclusion starts. And that is the future that I'm trying to build in my home, in my work, and in the systems around us. And I'm not gonna lie, I am still learning, and it's hard to do that in public, but I think it's so important. It's not about perfect postcard moments. It's about those kind of scary, oh my goodness, how do I navigate this situation in 0.2 seconds while my child's looking at me and we're in a public place. That's the reality of it. That's what I want to show. So I hope you found this useful. Super different format to the last 2 vlogs. As ever, super grateful if you've got this far into my ramble, and I'd love to hear if you've had any moments like that in your life or with your children, and how you navigated it, because I think it's really important to kind of share and all learn from each other. So I'd love for you to drop it in the comments, and I will see you next week.